What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be going over one of the boldest missions MACV SOG ever went on, and how that mission turned into one of, if not the biggest disaster MACV SOG ever experienced. And if you don't know what MACV SOG is, it stands for Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group. It was the U.S. Army's highly classified unit in the Vietnam War. They conducted covert operations across the fence in Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and North Vietnam. The unit was mostly made up of Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Reconnaissance Marines, and Air Commandos. They were an extremely classified, and I mean extremely classified, special operations unit during the Vietnam War. We've only here recently started to actually hear some of the stories from MACV SOG. They also had a 100% casualty rate, which a lot of people have gotten hung up on that in some of my past videos about MACV SOG, saying, how did they have 100% casualty rate if some of them survived? But casualty just means someone who was killed or severely wounded in combat. It doesn't mean they died. It means they had a 100% casualty rate, means 100% of SOG operators were either killed or severely wounded in combat, because the missions they went on were just straight up suicide missions. But few of these missions compare to the insane suicide mission we're going to be covering today. Well, I shouldn't say few compare, because honestly, all of their missions are absolutely insane and just impossible to even wrap my head around. But this one was just very special for reasons you will find out here in a minute. But before we get into today's video, guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for checking the video out. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are interested in these types of combat stories and military history, because I'm busting out these videos for you guys as often as I can. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future videos. And if you guys don't enjoy this video, please feel free to hit that dislike button and leave me a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve my future videos. Any and all feedback is greatly appreciated here. But with that out of the way, guys, let's jump into today's story. May 1967, MACV SOG's U.S. Special Operators went on a mission codenamed Oscar 8. Their target was the forward headquarters of the North Vietnamese Army's 559th Transportation Group. But what made this forward headquarters so special was that one of North Vietnam's top generals would soon be visiting the area. So, U.S. commanders quickly came up with a plan to kill or capture the general, and of course they gave this mission to MACV SOG. Oscar 8 was a bowl-shaped area in Laos, only about 11 miles from the U.S. Marine base in northern South Vietnam. The area was a big open field about 600 yards long and 2 miles wide, and it was completely surrounded on all sides by thick jungle, giving it its weird bowl-shaped appearance. And the North Vietnamese forward headquarters was right in the middle of this bowl-shaped area. The mission was given to a MACV SOG Hatchet Force company-sized element that specialized in large-scale raids and ambushes. It was composed of a few Special Forces operators and several dozen local mercenary troops, totaling about 100 commandos. The problem was that this forward headquarters housed thousands and thousands of enemy fighters, so the 100 commandos were going to be far outnumbered in this mission. So the game plan was for the U.S. Air Force to bomb the absolute heck out of the enemy just moments before the SOG operators were dropped in by helicopters. The SOG operators would then search the area for the general's body to confirm that he was dead, or if by some miracle he managed to survive the bombing, they would capture him. They were also going to search the area for any useful intel they could find in the base and finish off any other enemies that may have survived. And to support the operators, SOG headquarters also put on standby several Air Force, Marine, and even Navy fixed and rotary wing squadrons. All in all, there were 3 CH-46 Sea Knights helicopters to carry in the Hatchet Force, 4 UH-1 Huey gunships for close air support, 2 A-1E Sky Raider aircraft for close air support, 4 F-4C Phantom fighter jets for close air support, 2 H-34 choppers for combat search and rescue, and 2 forward observer aircraft to coordinate tactical air support. As the sun began to rise, 9 B-52 bombers dropped 945 unguided high-explosive bombs, more than 236 tons of munitions on the North Vietnamese headquarters and the adjoining positions. So right after the B-52 bombers finish their runs and clear out of the area, the SOG operators begin to roll in on their helicopters. And after 945 unguided high-explosive bombs were dropped on this headquarters, it was an absolute wasteland. The B-52 bombers decimated the entire headquarters. So the SOG operators are pretty sure they're about to land in an empty base with no hostiles for miles. But right as they're arriving, one of the forward air controllers flying overhead spotted North Vietnamese troops coming out of the jungle and putting out the fires at the base. And the enemy numbers continued to swell with more and more enemy soldiers coming from the jungle back into the base. And it quickly became clear to the SOG operators that somehow the enemy had largely managed to escape the onslaught from above from the B-52 bombers. And it's still to this day a mystery how the heck these guys managed to survive this. Somehow they must have known that the bombers were coming and managed to just retreat far into the dense jungle out of range of all the bombs being dropped, because very few of them died from the 900 plus unguided missiles that were dropped on the base. And immediately SOG headquarters called in for an abort mission, telling everyone to get out of the area as fast as possible. But it was too late. The first 2 CH-46 Sea Knight helicopters full of SOG operators were shot down, along with the 2 UH-1 Huey gunships that were providing close air support for them. And then immediately after that, an H-34 chopper attempting a rescue was also shot down in the area. Once their helicopters crashed, the SOG operators were immediately pinned down by heavy enemy machine gun fire and were forced to take shelter in 2 nearby bomb craters created by the B-52 bombers. Thankfully, due to the type of missions that SOG operators were used to going on, they carried an insane amount of ammunition and explosives. And that level of firepower was the only thing that kept them from being overrun by the vastly numerically superior enemy force. And meanwhile, a pair of F-4 Phantom jets came in low to cover the survivors, but they also took heavy anti-aircraft fire, and one of the fighters was shot down, the pilot going down with his plane. Then a pair of A-1E Sky Raiders came in to provide close air support, but they too received an overwhelming amount of anti-aircraft fire, and one of them crashed. At this point, there were about 45 SOG commandos taking cover inside 2 craters under heavy fire from the enemy on the ground. The team leader requested napalm and cluster bombs to be dropped within 100 feet of their location. At this time, another hatchet force was quickly assembled to act as a quick reaction force. Thankfully, they were already nearby and loaded up in an aircraft for an unrelated mission. So they were quickly redirected over Oscar 8 to keep the battered SOG commandos alive. But the North Vietnamese continued to fend off or shoot down any aircraft that tried to exfiltrate the SOG commandos, which prevented the quick reaction force from being inserted. But thankfully, they were able to pull off concentrated air attacks against the NVA, which allowed the hatchet force to stay alive for 2 more days before the commandos were eventually able to exfiltrate. They held off thousands of enemy soldiers in those 2 bomb craters for 2 whole days. 2 days of constant fighting, no sleeping, bombs being dropped within 100 feet of you constantly. Day and night, non-stop, they fought off this enemy that far outnumbered them. They signed up for a mission that should have taken mere hours to complete with very little gunfighting going on whatsoever, but ended up being in a 2-day gunfight against a massive enemy force. 23 men from SOG and its supporting air units, and about 50 of the indigenous fighters were wounded or killed or went missing or were captured during the operation. In addition, 2 CH-46 Sea-Knight helicopters, 1 UH-1 gunship, 1 H-34 transport chopper, 1 F-4 Phantom jet, and 1 A-1E Sky Raider were shot down during the operation. During the fight, one seriously wounded American Sergeant First Class Charles Wilklow was captured by the North Vietnamese, who used him as bait for a rescue force for 4 days. Wilklow not only managed to survive his wounds, but also escaped the enemy, getting picked up by a combat search and rescue chopper 5 days after the battle began. Oscar 8 was a disaster for SOG. The Hatchet Force failed to achieve any of the mission's goals, and if it weren't for the sheer will and grit of the commandos and the air crews, it would have been a lot worse. Operation Oscar 8 highlights the dangers SOG operators faced on every mission. With the odds always against them, it's miraculous that their successes outweighed their failures. And within 48 hours of returning back to base, these SOG operators were back out there on another suicide mission, because that was just the lifestyle they lived. It was one mission after the other, one near-death experience after the other, back to back every day. But that's it for today's story. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. The MACV SOG stories are always my favorites to read through. They're unreal, dude. I mean, they're absolutely unbelievable. These guys were just incredible men. But anyway, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will talk to you all later.